last time.
And they were saying, well, we'll see, maybe it'll be canceled, maybe it won't. And just like think back now to that far back, just going,
All right, we are up and running. Hey, so
all
ask
right.
and you shall receive, the infamous surgeon from Advent Health, Dr. Matt Albert, back here to give us another update on what's going on with COVID. First of all, you're good, safe, family's good.
Yeah, all good here. You know, we just had a little chat. I know you're doing fine as well. You have a blossoming career, you know, due to the coronavirus here.
Yeah, I'm enjoying myself. I like to talk, so this has helped.
No, it's interesting when you got this started and we first started talking your desires about it because you know, obviously we're furiously on the medical education side of things. You know, we say, how do we keep surgeons learning and interested, and residents who suddenly, you know, are no longer learning and are thrown into the mix of taking care of patients. So, you know, in fact, so many of these we're taking live onto the internet in similar fashion, from talking to the folks at Stryker that will start doing medical education online, to what's already been happening. You know, our sages and our surgical societies have all, we had major meetings coming up in the spring. You know, it's like the PGA, we got all the majors right after each other in the spring. And so those have all been canceled. Those are generally major teaching, learning opportunities. So we're trying to make up for it online. And so I, you know, told the companies, hey, I'll instead of flying all over the place, I'll just do it from my computer. Sounds good. So
Awesome.
similar to you, I mean, why not? It builds some skills. You get to talk a little bit and learn a little bit about everybody.
Yeah, I'm getting better every time I get on here, I think. So it's been awesome. So tell us what kind of I know last week we discussed obviously about it and what's going on, and now we've seen definitely a surge. So tell us about it.
Yeah, it's somewhat, you know, it's somewhat a weird thing. And I know it leads to people getting real frustrated, you know, that, you know, they say, well, actually, the peak won't be for even another few more weeks. And not as many people will be dead from this. And, you know, it blows my mind already. You see some people shifting their tone because, like I probably said it last time, you know, unlike the hurricane, you know, if we don't get this as bad as we should have, it's not that you throw up and go, oh my God, this was all a big waste. Everyone overreacted. It was the media. We start looking for you. We should say,
We're looking for someone to blame, right?
we really did a good job of minimizing how many of our fellow citizens and human beings, you know, got this disease. And so it's interesting. So, you know, even at our place, that every day it somewhat changes. As you see, you flatten the curve somewhat. It kind of seems to prolong that peak interval out. So as where many of us probably thought we were going to be helping out last week, it seems to be maybe next week or the week after that. We still have ICU beds. I know from our we get a very good, well-rounded daily update. That so we're just hanging tight and waiting for things to get more serious.
So when I know you saw that I had tagged you in a post, I think it was Sunday, and I was listening to Dr. I don't want to say the name wrong, Fauci, I believe.
Yeah.
And he had mentioned certain things about peaks and valleys and different as far as mitigation and what they're doing to. There was like three main things that he's tasking people to try to go after this. So let me see. I tagged you last week.
Yeah. I remember you did, but between the chloroquine and
Yeah,
you know, everything
and all
else,
that stuff.
it
That's
all
one
it all
thing that's been a huge question is, you know, you see people posting, you know, chloroquine, nobody's getting sick that was on chloroquine, or is chloroquine working, is it not? And nothing has really, based on what you and I discussed last week, none of that has been proven yet.
Yeah,
Here we go.
it's somewhat funny, even that topic, because at the end of the day, we still won't know, and you'll have, different publications showing it benefits and others showing it doesn't benefit, and at the end, we'll probably never know for sure.
Yeah. So he said that, a few bullet points. He said, we haven't hit the peak of this yet. There's a tough week coming up. So the week coming up is going to be kind of, and then the apex is approaching and they're starting to work on some sort of mitigation. So maybe just on those bullet points, if you can expand on maybe, do we have something good to look forward to? Does it sound like there's good things happening there?
Yeah, I won't be Dr. Fauci. I told you I don't claim to be an epidemiologist, and love to focus on just individually and how it affects us throughout.
Us here in Central Florida.
Yeah, yeah. The peak thing is a moving target. You see that everyone has their models. It's just like the hurricane forecasting models. We see something switch and it kind of changes the whole model. But it's a little bit more frustrating because I think it's not tangible, to people as much, and it's just welcome to the world of data that's entering medicine as well, that these things quickly adjust in real time based on data. And so it's kind of getting frustrating waiting for the peak to come. I think on the other side of it, though, that look, I'm not going to end up making national policy or anything.
Sure.
But I think as you see, the real fear is what we don't know already, what we still don't know and won't know. That you see Wuhan opening things back up, and yet in Singapore today, where it was kind of lock solid, that they suddenly have nearly 400 new cases and they're going quickly back to, draconian measures here.
Yeah. So when you hear, hey, look what China's doing, or Singapore, they all went back to, but they're not hearing about the new 400 cases.
Yeah. And so I think it would be really abnormal to think that as we all pour out into the public like lunatics at one point, like we're going to be so excited to be out there.
Yeah.
It would be crazy to think that we're not going to get, second and third waves of this, which we will. I think it's still at a point of like, you just keep trying to delay these waves over time. I'll give a plug again from our hospital. I can't say enough. I mean, that nobody's wearing garbage bags as PPE. We've been, again, continued transparent, great leadership every day, getting updates, changing things rapidly. I've talked to one of my intensivists today who, we, even in the worst case scenarios of people not being able to use oxygen, that we put people on basically cardiac bypass, or what we call ECMO, extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, where we really stocked up on a good amount of equipment to do ECMO on people in extreme scenarios. He talked about a handful of successes with that. Still, when you're in there doing this, you take all the successes and they still are exhilarating. I think, the other day I had a great international Zoom conference with a bunch of friends, and it made me feel much better. I think for the main thing, I think every time you see, somebody get, someone die and they'll say the age, that instantly everyone's going, okay, what were the underlying risk factors, It's just our way of rationalizing the fear a little bit. And at the end of the day, like my friend says, we do, there are going to be some people like that with no risk factors, good lungs, who are healthy, and something bad happens, I like it too. You see this all the time in the news and medically too, that during the summer, the 2 or 3 people who get these totally bizarre cases of meningitis, anemic meningoencephalitis from the lakes, otherwise healthy people, you go, God, bad spot, wrong time, wrong place. But for every one of those terrible stories you hear, that it's just so magnified and sensationalized. who knows that X number, hundreds of patients actually walk around with no symptoms at all, So it really is the rare case where you see this horrible story of the young guy or gal. It still seems to be older patients, increased risk factors. And I think we are doing better and better at taking care of this throughout the world, at least medically, despite no great silver bullet.
Yeah, I have a question, and I think maybe you touched on a little bit of the answer is I feel like people are trying to put stuff out there to kind of try to talk themselves into, well, this, it's all right because this or that or the other thing, right? So you see a lot where people try to say, well, the flu kills more people, or the cold, or this or that. And I mean, the thing is, you have data on the flu. There is no data, solid data on this yet. So how do you know what the numbers are?
Yeah. That's such the hard thing, that when you start going to that, and you'll see, I've already seen it, it drives me nuts, that in the end, this is just like a bad flu season. Again, maybe we did lots to mitigate this, over the last couple months and calm things down. On the other hand, because we don't know what it would have been like without it. The projections were frankly really, scary. But it all just to the fact, again, that it's novel, that it's unknown, that there's no immunity to it, that we know so little about it, that just adds those additional layers, of fear to it. Because the other thing that again, I think that you're going to see it, as we've done our best to not expose ourselves from it. It's not going to go away or be eradicated completely, as even we've shown, the countries that do, source tracing and quarantine, you can't make it zero. So you're going to see it pop up, throughout, I think, the upcoming months and fall and winter. I think we're going to be talking about this for a while.
Even if there is a vaccine, it could be something that becomes seasonal, like the flu. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, that would be a great thing if eventually it was just a seasonal thing, that we all got our coronavirus vaccine, despite the, it's the new one.
Or we all get 3 months off of work every year.
The new one, the conspiracy theories that it's just Bill Gates that wants to inject us with microchips and vaccines.
Yeah, or it's a chemical warfare released by.
I'm about reaching my peak of social media, where I'm about to give myself a little holiday. One other a big thing, I think, another little point. I'd love you to keep asking questions, but things that have been on my mind the last week. One thing that everybody wants to know, that keeps asking, what is the number of asymptomatic people who are walking around out there, with it? And it's still the $1 million question that nobody knows, because you have to know, well, what percentage of the population, how many are tested, what percentage of the population is tested, and you have to do mass testing. And it's the country who has done more of this than anyone else in the world is Iceland. That they've tested about 10% of their population now. I think their population about 400, 500,000, but that they've tested 10% of their population by phone book. And their numbers indicate, again, best data we have, there was about 50% of patients who were tested positive who were asymptomatic. So sure, that would have been great to know, 3 months ago, but we just don't, and we still don't. And that's only 10% sampling of the population. You don't know how many more you'd have to sample to say that that's a powerful enough power for that number to be significant. But
I mean, you'd have to go neighborhood to neighborhood, door to door. I mean, it's not like 1950s, right, where the nurse shows up and checks you and.
So, because wouldn't it be, I think it'd be a much different story too, if we know who those are asymptomatic. From a surgical standpoint, the asymptomatic, this continues to evolve as well. And we talked a little bit last week about doing surgery in these times that, even though that we're still operating on cancers and things, there's underlying tension, anxiety, concern of who you're operating on. Do they have COVID or not? Are you taking adequate precautions? Surgery is stressful enough on a daily basis without the extra anxiety that's thrown in. And so I've more and more even backed off from doing as many surgeries. Even some of the patients with cancer, we don't know. In many countries, they've instituted testing for anybody having surgery. Therefore, the operating room team knows they're safe and not worried about gases and respiratory droplet precautions. But more so, amazing article came out of China yesterday. And it's a small number of cases, but they showed that early on in this, while they were operating still, that of the patients who were operated on, who had COVID but were asymptomatic, as in nobody knew that they were COVID positive and had totally routine elective surgery, there was a 20% mortality rate. 1 out of 5 people with normal routine surgeries who have a 1% or less mortality, there was a 20% mortality rate. So for me, again, early data, this isn't, real, that's not level 1 evidence, but makes you instantly go. And these patients on day 4, 5, and 6 were progressing with pulmonary COVID symptoms like everyone normal, and combined with the stress of surgery, were dying. So even when I hear cancer patients telling me that we got to get them in and do surgery, more and more, I just, it's becomes a little bit more unknown and a bit more fearful. And I say, let's wait until we know a little bit more about this. There's no question that I think we'll have to start testing routinely all patients before they undergo anesthesia. So we know those 2 basic questions. Is it going to affect the patient? Is it going to affect the staff taking care of them?
And there's more. I mean, obviously I see testing stations have been opening up, and more testing packets are coming into the doctors and the hospitals. So it's just inevitable that we see a surge of positive cases just because we're able to test more people now, right?
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, that will probably keep going up and up and up. And they always try to tell us, don't be alarmed, that we expected this. We're finally testing people. So I wonder what number we'll finally arrive at, but regardless of what it is, that I think the end of the message is that, we certainly could have done better. People will point fingers all over, but, as individual citizens, keeping away, staying indoors, the majority of us did our part to try to minimize things. I won't be disappointed if it's not as bad whatsoever.
Yeah. And, so I know last week we spoke about a lot of your friends up in the Northeast that are it's like Auschwitz, right? I mean, it's just.
Yeah, it's scariest thing seen still in Manhattan and New York. I know they've had encouraging things, but I had my own interesting little scare this week, and I think I bet it's normal, for anyone undergoing this, but. As we have training programs, and I work closely with a trainee, a fellow, where we've tried to minimize, surgeon contact during all this. We've tried to minimize the staff, but, we work together right next to each other every day. He started developing symptoms over the last 48 hours. And so he went in to get tested. And it's an amazing feeling that comes over you, because in the big scheme of things, like I said, it's not HIV, it's not cancer, and it's not like Ebola virus, overall low mortality. Sure, we see this high risk patients who get very sick from it, but but instantly you go, oh my God, I've been with him. Was I exposed to this thing? And then did I bring this thing into my family, into my house? It's suddenly, and under normal circumstances, if we just say it's just the flu or the cold doesn't have that same ability. Under normal times, you go, oh crap, I got a cold, or I got the, I feel lousy.
Sure.
But it's
hey, I got the flu. Did you get the shot? Yeah, you'll be okay.
But it's amazing given hype, the times we're living in, that, you're trying to, that when you hear, oh my God, that maybe I was at risk and caught this thing, it's an amazing feeling of fear and anxiety that comes over you. I think instantly I started going, my first question I was saying to myself is, will I put it out on Facebook that I'm COVID-19 and I'm positive and brave and, don't, take away the stigma of this? Or would I not tell anybody until afterwards? I don't, but it was a scary feeling when it's not, when you really look at it intellectually, probably not the scariest or worst possible thing that could happen to you. But
Yeah, did you see the interview that I had earlier in the week? I think I tagged you on it. One of my friends that battled it.
No, I didn't. So was he sick?
Yeah, so he had it, and I had him come on to talk a little about it. Now he was, years ago he was an MMA fighter, so he's in good shape, and he said that knowing how to do like proper breathing exercises and things like that really helped him. But one thing is, when he went out the first time, he got the courage to go out to try to find a testing place, he would get turned away because he wasn't, he didn't qualify in that bubble.
Yeah.
So because he's in the pharmaceutical industry, he was lucky enough to be able to have a contact, and they sent him a testing packet, and he confirmed it and kind of did what he had to do. But thank God he got through it. But he spoke about just fighting the fevers and just the low energy and the things that were kind of side effects from it.
Yeah, I think the shortness of breath is and we say the air hunger that ultimately that the real problem. And everyone's had that feeling of inability to catch your breath, and there's nothing more scary of that sensation when you get the wind knocked out of you. And so that's the sensation, the dramatized part about this, and death and lack of ventilators. It's goes along probably because it's the worst thing to watch as well. People struggling for air, or literally drowning, in the air, and gasping. And so it's not the most pleasant, thing to think about or anything. I wish I knew some of these techniques. I would suggest that you consider getting one of these health stress management or meditative person. Just get on here, discuss some breathing exercises and meditation and things. Because as soon as you said that, I go, I'm a hot mess. I'll get anxious. I'll start breathing more.
Yeah.
I mean, it's critical. It's the same thing you see with scuba diving and these things. And it's a scary feeling not being able to breathe.
Yeah, I know a buddy of mine, Damone, is doing a virtual breathing class Saturday on I don't know, some platform. I'd have to go find it so I can post it on the feed and say, hey, Doc says breathing exercises are good.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm sure there's we've all gone to this medium. I'm sure there's a tons I could find out there right this second. But it's similar. It's just interesting seeing people around the world kind of all being in the same boat. I love seeing my friend in England, freaking out about the neighbors across the street, all packing up to go on a little car trip, where she just.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because I have that thought sometimes too. Like it's different. Like if we have a hurricane in the summer and we're like, okay, only us are inside, and then it'll blow through and we'll go back out, right?
Yeah.
But then I'm thinking, I'm going, wait a second, every single human is there, and the ones that aren't completely locked in because they don't want to discipline themselves to do that are still kind of rolling around, and that's the scare. I mean, good for them. I hope that they never get it, and I hope they go through this and successfully work, and God bless them, right? But they're just walking.
Yeah, I mean, it's the God, you need the sociologist, and psychologist of human beings, for this. It makes you frustrated because you're sitting there, I'm doing my part. And then this guy right across the street, like couldn't care less. I think a doctor friend of mine posted it today, probably the most powerful, probably marketing I've seen for this yet, is it shows the million rat traps with the little ping pong ball. And one ping pong ball comes in and just sets this entire, cascade off. And all you're going to need is one, guy at a large event, imagine, to just completely trigger the entire thing again.
Well, yeah, did you see where someone posted, if I gave, okay, so 3% or whatever, right? So if I gave you, or 30% or however it was, and if I gave you a bag of Skittles that had 100 Skittles in it, and I told you there's 3 in that bag that'll kill you, you wouldn't even open the bag of Skittles. You'd say, I'm not going to eat it because I don't even know what 3 are going to kill me. But yet you'll run outside and continue to live life like this isn't going on.
Yeah, the human behavior part of it is interesting. I even, I think a little escalation of probably frustration and stuff. I've seen lots of posts today, people in Winn-Dixie with people fist fighting, in line.
Yeah. And you had to know it was coming, because it was just a matter of time before the stress level erupted, or the last roll of toilet paper was fought for in the aisle.
Yeah, when I was out and about earlier, 2 buddies, just giving themselves a little playful ribbing where it quickly escalated. It's you think, times it's a stressful time, no matter even if you're turning into a media guy during this. It's there's some exciting things to look forward to during this time, but the lack of normalcy is it throws my rhythm off, that's for sure. I need routine.
Yeah, and it's becoming routine. So I'm a little nervous how my routine will be when I have to go back to what my normal everyday routine was. Like I got to readjust, right?
I'm deadly terrified about this. I always talk when we take a little 1-week break from surgery. It's never enough. And then I always say, man, I worry about the reentry. You should be all relaxed and everything, but you're thrown right back into the high stress, game right away, and expected to perform. And the reentry is a scary thing. We've all got used to. Certainly, even those who are an essential, I know that there's some people working extremely hard, multiple shifts. I thank those people. But on the other hand, yeah, when I go back and I got to ramp up to 110% real quickly, and I'm seeing 20 back to the normal amount of patients, it's not going to be fun whatsoever. No, I don't know.
I'm just wondering if I can put the car in. I'm just wondering if I can put the car in drive.
I mean, you're going to see lots of people with reentry anxiety. Difficulty coping with because given the amount of time, I mean, by that point, people have been out of it for 2 months, maybe 3 months even. Getting back into a normal work routine, you're going to see more stress, more anger, more. I think you'll see a lot of secondary psychological effects from all this. We already greatly lack in mental health here in the United States, and I think you're going to see that get even worse.
And that's no bueno, as they say, right?
Yeah.
Well, hey, I mean, I appreciate you coming on here with me. Let's. I'll schedule next week with you. You'll have to. Well, is a 4 o'clock time slot better, or 5:30?
I never know. I mean, sometimes we may get the evening feast. We may start preparing early. I mean. Every day is a different schedule, other than the kids' school schedule and that sort of thing. So,
well, I can always adapt. So,
on with you again.
I mean, I had you on the schedule, but I can always just, go business as usual. And then when you hit me and say, "Hey, tonight you want to jump on? Some pretty cool stuff's going on. We can chat." Yeah, I'll just jump right on with you.
I'll collect some points of interest this week. I think we'll be hearing a lot more about antibody testing over the next week or 2 weeks. They've started talking about having those tests out, and it's hard to get excited because then you go, well, even with the antibodies, can you be reinfected again? Starting to see that in Korea already. And
Yeah, because that's a big question, people, because initially it was said, once you get it, you got it. Now you're starting to see it reappear, right?
yep. And if that, people are completely carefree about having antibodies and not being able to get it again, we don't know we don't know a lot now. We don't know the rates of reinfectivity. We know it's possible, but we certainly don't know what those rates are. And then once again, you'll see, are we going to really be able to do enough testing and mass testing? Are we going to start lining up by last name or zip code or what? So, these are the type of plans and things that you would love to be able to hear as a citizen. Sure, plans change and it's dynamic, but you'd like to get some framework of how will we go back to normal. And I don't know if antibody testing will be that, but anyhow, yeah, I'll collect some things that come up that are of interest throughout the week. No earth-shocking revelations on the medical side, except people continue to fight over chloroquine despite using it pretty routinely so far. So we'll stay in touch.
And still no proof, no valid proof that it is the heaven sent and it's stopping all this. But
yeah, I'll say it now though, for everybody who I've bothered. Sure, if I was sick in the hospital, would I get it? Sure, I'd try it. Of course I would try it. I'm not stupid. As long as monitoring my cardiac effects. Would I do it as an outpatient if I tested positive right off the bat? I don't know in that scenario.
And that's what Mike said. They gave him a prescription, and one of it was the chloroquine, and he understood it from being a pharmaceutical background. And he said, if it got to the point where I had to, I would have, but I really didn't want to without supervision.
Yeah, I mean, those are the two major things that you see. The guy, the veterinarian who posts online that he took care of 50 patients and not one of them had to go into the hospital, but that's a markedly different patient than the guy showing up in the ER, ready to be intubated. Those are the details of, is it better to use it in this early, indolent phase of it when people test positive, or do you wait for it? Those are type of things you have to wait for to know too. Personally, I don't know, the cardiac effects enough that I'd rather be on a monitor getting it and getting checked in the hospital. But these are real life things. That's why I said and
that's coming from a surgeon that is very well versed in all this.
Yeah, I mean, it depends how sick I was, and that's the bottom line, that no doctor is withholding this based on any political, stance of anybody. We're using it if we think the risk-benefit, balance is favorable for that patient. But for the most part, nearly everybody's getting it or it's discussed.
I mean, obviously, as a doctor, your job is to do what you think is best to keep that patient alive, right? So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, when you see people sick, you better believe we throw the whole kitchen sink at them, whether it only has a tiny chance of working, and that's what people and families of patients want. So yeah, I'll be in touch with you, and we'll talk again. I'll keep some good updates for the week, anything that comes in new. As I told you before, you started to see our return to things. Walking into the hospital, we all get temperature scanned daily. We get little stickers when we go in that says our temperature's been checked. Trying to run a little bit more high tech so you don't have to keep getting checked no matter what door you keep going in. But I look at it as a way to keep us safe, and I appreciate it. Certainly.
And I did see somebody, I think it was Jess and Sarah over at Kendrick, posted or Champion posted a photo of somebody brought food and boxed lunches and everything for the medical staff, and so people are definitely appreciative of everything you guys are doing, and they're trying to do the best they can to get stuff.
I appreciate everybody's support and comments. I wish I could currently do more. Fortunately for everybody, that the census is still low. Still, we'll wait and be ready in case things pick up here, and be ready to help out in the intensive care units.
Awesome. Well, hey, I look forward to talking to you next week. Enjoy dinner, And man, I'm very appreciative.
Cool. Good talking to you, Dan. Take care, buddy.
You too, bud.